Are you okay with him moving to the head of the class at a Heisman with those two games? Because he wasn't even in the discussion before those two games.
This is a big opportunity for Dylan if he wants to continue to make his case for the Heisman Trophy, and I think he's shown that. You know, I mean, what is he, a sixth-tier player who's going to probably end up setting most of the passing marks because he's been around for so long? So why not also throw a Heisman Trophy in the mix?
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Good morning. Welcome to the NewsWire here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish. Lots to get to on today's show. Of course, it's a big day here in the country tomorrow with Election Day. We'll find out if the state of Missouri legalizes sports betting tomorrow. And if so, will they be betting on the National Football League? Of course, we'll recap everything that happened in the NFL yesterday and also college football as well on Saturday. Vinnie Iyer will be with us from Sporting News. And it's a day to have guest named Adam on the show. Adam Kaufman, Adam Caplan. Both of them will be along with us. Also, Casey Hudson weighs in on the latest going on with the Dallas Cowboys. And, of course, we got a Monday Night Football game to preview between Tampa Bay and Kansas City. So let's start with the big story today in the National Football League, where we have another coach in the NFL that has been fired. Not a huge surprise, as the New Orleans Saints lose to the Carolina Panthers on Sunday. That cost Dennis Allen his job. A big favorite, of course, yesterday going in to Carolina. They end up taking the loss. Allen went 18-25 in 2+ seasons in New Orleans, taking over for Sean Payton, failing to make the playoffs twice. Certainly the Saints got off to that great start, 2-0 to start the season, but it has gone downhill ever since. Darren Rizzi will take over as interim head coach of the Saints. They play the Atlanta Falcons coming up this Sunday. Meanwhile, some news from the National Basketball Association as future Hall of Fame coach Greg Popovich is taking a leave of absence due to health issues. He'll be away from the Spurs, from the team indefinitely. This just reported by ESPN about 30 minutes ago. Greg Popovich not on the sidelines for the Spurs moving forward. Last night in the National Football League, the Colts made a change at quarterback, and it looked just about how it has all season long, unfortunately for them, as Joe Flacco couldn't get anything going on offense, and the Vikings defense has just been fantastic. They end up beating the Indianapolis Colts and righting the ship, so to speak, with a 21-13 win for the Vikings and Sam Darnold. As I mentioned, their defense dominated. The only touchdown for the Colts, by the way, was a defensive touchdown in this game. So really good news for the Vikings getting back on track. Bad news for the Colts. Seems like they have a major quarterback problem. But let's hear from Kevin O'Connell on the big win for his team at home.
All right, proud of our team. Adversity, absolutely something that I was proud of the way we responded. There was a lot of things that we really wanted to emphasize, starting with our defense. I thought they were really the backbone tonight for us, not only forcing two turnovers with Murph and Harry, but just the way they were able to answer the bell, even on a short field there in the second half. Credit to Flo, his staff, and all of our players for that effort. Thought our team limited penalties. I don't think we had any pre-snap things offensively. We really tried to obviously emphasize that. I know it's been talked about at length, but a good example of if we at least start there. I think we averaged almost 6 yards of play, moved it all night. Some critical turnovers, and then we've got even against a good front with a new left tackle. Still, the expectation is just to protect Sam a little bit more, give him an opportunity to keep getting the ball out of his hands. Thought there were some huge performances from Jets. Loved the way Cam Akers popped a little bit, coming in there, really showing what he's capable of. And then Jordan Addison's catch was one of the better catches over there in a pretty critical moment.
It was a great day for the Vikings and a bad day again for the Dallas Cowboys. They lost the game to the Falcons and may end up losing their quarterback, Dak Prescott, who left the game with an injured hamstring. He's going to undergo an MRI, but naturally the Cowboys went to Cooper Rush in this game late. They did not pick up a win, and their season's certainly on the brink ahead of the trade deadline. Maybe they'll trade for a quarterback. That deadline, by the way, is tomorrow. Meanwhile, as we mentioned, Cowboys end up losing in Atlanta. Falcons cover the spread. Total was 51.5. 27-21 was the final. Falcons now 6-3 on the season. The Bills and Dolphins slugged it out on offense yesterday. Back and forth they went in the second half of this game. 30-27 the final, as Tyler Bass kicks a 61-yard field goal to pick up the win. Josh Allen also had a nice game. In fact, had a rush for a touchdown called back with a very skeptical holding penalty, I would say. But Allen happy that his team gets the division win.
So proud of him. So happy for him. Got emotional in my little post-game speech out there. Just the trials and tribulations that he's been throughout this year. Obviously missing one early in the day. Hitting the pole on another. He could easily put it in the tank, and 61-yard field goal to win a game against a division rival. It's what stories are made of, and I love him. I respect him so much. Everybody in that locker room is so happy for him, and he's our guy.
He was a great kicker, at least for a day, was Tyler Bass. Now, meanwhile, the most exciting game of the day came in overtime in Seattle, as the Rams end up beating the Seahawks by a final of 26-20. Matthew Stafford threw a touchdown pass to Demarcus Robinson. That was the game winner, and 48.5 was the total, so this just went under that. Also, Jared Goff and the Lions, unstoppable. They go to Green Bay. It was rainy. The weather was horrible, and Goff won a bad weather game. I don't want to hear about that anymore. 24-14, the Lions pick up the win. All right, Derrick Henry making his case maybe to be the offensive player of the year in the National Football League. Another big game. He cracks the top 10 all-time in rushing touchdowns. The Ravens annihilated the Broncos by a final of 41-10. Ravens were 8.5-point favorites in this game. The total was 46.5. Bo Nix finally met a match that he could not overcome in the Ravens, but the Broncos, according to Nix, still in a decent spot.
Well, they were obviously really important plays in the game, and if you hit them, you never know what happens at the end of the drive. And we came away with no points on several of those fourth downs, and we just, you never know. So obviously, if you hit those, the game, I guess could change. But a lot of what ifs in this game, and the fact of the matter is, we got our butts kicked. We definitely would have liked to change some of those plays. Definitely wish a few of them went in our favor. But, I guess, like I said, we just got to, hit some of those plays, and you never know what happens in the game. But, we just got to execute better.
Impressive game, I thought, for the Baltimore Ravens in that one in particular. Meanwhile, the good season for the Chargers in the first year of Jim Harbaugh coaching continues. They crushed the Browns 27-10. Jameis Winston on the other side threw 3 interceptions. And meanwhile, the Washington Commanders just keep on winning. They go to New York. They win again. Final score 27-22. Washington was playing without Brian Robinson in this game, but Austin Eckler subbed in, and he scored a touchdown pass. By the way, Washington covers the number. The Giants went for a late 2-point conversion, didn't get it. Cardinals win their third straight. They are charging toward first place in the NFC West. I know, sounds crazy, but it's true. 29-9 over the Bears. Joe Burrow gets things going for the Cincinnati Bengals. They pick up an easy win over the Raiders, 41-24. Raiders also fired some coaches after the game. We'll talk about that in a minute. We mentioned the Saints, of course, losing to Carolina. Titans beat the Patriots late, 20-17. Tony Pollard, big game. Wasn't even supposed to play in this one, and he did, 20-17. And the Eagles beat the Jaguars 28-23. Saquon Barkley, huge game, over 100 yards rushing, also scoring a touchdown. All right, now let's get to the top 25 poll. In college football, we're getting ready for the official announcement for the college football playoff, which is coming up later today. Oregon number 1, Georgia number 2, Ohio State 3, Miami moves up to 4, and Texas number 5. Indiana undefeated. They're at 8. Ohio State, of course, beat Penn State on Saturday, 20-13. The head coach of Penn State arguing with the fans after that game. How about the Gamecocks? They upset SEC rival Texas A&M 44-20. As I mentioned, Indiana picks up another win, and Louisville upsets Clemson on the road. The Tigers now have 2 losses on the season. Very quickly, we go to the National Basketball Association. They're reopening an investigation into a 2021 incident involving Los Angeles Lakers center Jackson Hayes after TMZ posted a video Saturday of the altercation between him and his then-girlfriend. Stay tuned. De'Aaron Fox of the Kings playing through injury to his shooting hand. They visit Miami tonight. Paul George will make his season debut against the Suns, where the Suns are 7.5-point favorites over Philly tonight. And Victor Wembanyama and the Spurs are 4.5-point underdogs in Los Angeles tonight against the Clippers. We'll do the latest National Football League roundup with Vinnie Iyer of Sporting News next.
They talk about the play they ran at the end of the game where it was the worst player screen I've ever seen in the history of basketball. No. See, here's what you got to do, Sherwood. I respect you. You're fantastic. But damn it, don't blame the officials. When you have a game like that close, there's about 100 or 1,000 different things you could have done differently that could have won you the game.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. I am ready. I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long, people. What in the world is going on in Miami, Dom?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take, hot take.
I think this line is asking you once again to take New Orleans.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Vinnie Iyer is with us from Sporting News. We'll go over the latest in the National Football League. We've got a coaching change in the National Football League and also a recap of last night's game. Vinnie, I feel like let's go off script here to start. Dennis Allen fired by the Saints. This should not be a huge surprise. I saw, social media was really giving him a hard time yesterday. Yeah, like the Saints were 2-0. I thought it was fraudulent, but I didn't think that they'd lose every game since then. I mean, I can't say that I thought that.
Yeah.
They were really a blah team going into the season. It just feels like they're duct taping this team every year. Isn't it time, Vinny, the Saints just take a step back and start things over?
Yeah, I think this was a tough situation for Dennis Allen, right? It was a post-Sean Payton era. They thought there was going to be an extension of that, except you didn't have Drew Brees anymore. So you had to figure it out without Drew Brees. And the quarterback situation's been an absolute mess. Derek Carr's not lived up to expectations coming over. And looking at his history as a head coach has not been good. He's a very good defensive coordinator, but when you go back even to his Raiders stint, not very good at all. And the last straw, I think, was losing to the Panthers, and then the team going on Twitter and explaining, or X, and complaining about how they felt so badly about this product. So Dennis Allen had to go. They were going to look for a new coach anyway. I think everyone expected this even before the season, that this team was going to disappoint in the NFC South and have to look for a new coach. And you're right, and maybe this will get them to turn the page. We'll see about the GM, Mickey Loomis. Does he step down? Do they start everything from scratch here in New Orleans? I think that would be a good approach, as you suggested, Craig.
Yeah, no, I think so. And also, we'll get to the Raiders here in a minute because they fired coaches too. But first, let's do the game last night. Sam Darnold, I mean, shaky game, to be honest with you. I mean, the Vikings defense, Vinny, is going to carry them to the playoffs. I don't know that they're a team that can go very far, though, honestly, with the way that they play on offense. And by the way, what an embarrassment for the Colts yesterday. And this notion that Joe Flacco was like the savior, boy, it was like the opposite of that. I would hate to think, Vinny, that the Colts go back to Anthony Richardson. I got to tell you, I would. I mean, that was a horrible display of football. They just touched Joe Flacco. This guy was going down every single time. No disrespect to him. He's had a great career. But this idea that all of a sudden that they had this idea that he was going to come in and be their savior again, that seems foolish at this point.
Yeah, Joe Flacco needs everything right to work, and we saw that a little bit with his stint in the last season that he had with the Browns. But when we look at this team, the left tackle's out of this game. That's a disaster. I mean, he's a very good pass protector, so you knew the Vikings pass rush was going to come after him. And then when you have Joe Flacco back there, what is he doing? He's basically doing Anthony Richardson things, throwing it up, hoping some guys catch it, except Joe Flacco's not going to run and give you anything out of that. And that's the head-scratching thing I think they did with Anthony Richardson, is like, let the guy run. He's in his second year. He's really fast. Let him run out of his slump a little bit. And it's really surprising because Shane Steichen did that with Jalen Hurts. He let him run a lot in year two, and then he developed. And then all of a sudden, he's a top-flight passer. So I thought they were going to follow the same path. What they're also not doing is forgetting about the running game here with Jonathan Taylor. I don't know what they were doing in certain personnel sets where he was not there. But Richardson makes Taylor more dangerous, too, because you got to worry about two rushing threats out of the backfield. So I don't know. Shane Steichen not really having his stock go up here this season with his treatment of Richardson. And 4-5, they're not going anywhere. They're not touching this playoff race.
No, probably just best to lose your 10, 11 games with Richardson just to see if there's something there. All right, so of the teams that are under 500, and there are a lot, the Jets, there's still some hope for them. Miami, still some hope for them. It seems like, at least from the outside looking in, Vinny, that the Bengals are one of those teams amongst all of them, Dallas maybe included, that could go on a run because their offense is just so good. They proved that again yesterday. 41 points against the Raiders. They just haven't been able to stop anybody all season. That's been their issue. Do you think that the Bengals are one of those sleeping dogs here to make the playoffs? They're still kind of minus money here at minus 104 just because the league has been so subpar this year.
Yeah, you look at it, they're only a game behind the Broncos. It's how much faith do you have in the Broncos at this point? We just talked about the Colts having the same record at 4-5. I mean, it's night and day. I mean, the Colts have been lucky to be in a lot of one-possession games that make things look better than they actually are. But when the Bengals get rolling and they have that quarterback to do so, and Joe Burrow, they're really hard to stop because if they play with a lead, you're gone against them because you can't catch up. They have very good pass rush. The problem is they've been slow starting, right? And that allows teams to run and get the Bengals out of what they're doing. I think they made a great adjustment yesterday without T. Higgins last 2 weeks. Just throwing the ball around to different guys. They're not dependent so much on Jamar Chase. They're finding a bit of a running game here. So the Bengals are a dangerous team. I don't think anybody
in the top half of the AFC wants to see them in there. And you look at this week, big opportunity. I think it's almost a must-win game, trying to beat the Ravens this week on Thursday night.
Yep, would agree. Raiders, by the way, fired more coaches. This is a annual thing, Vinny. You know, every year the Raiders fire somebody. So this time it's Luke Getsy, the offensive coordinator, and their quarterback's coach. I'm going to guess, Vinny, you think I'm right here? I'm going to guess they're going to start Ritter this week, right? It feels like that's what they're going to do.
I mean, might as well at this point. You know, Gardner Minshew's not going to be here for long. You know Connell's hurt. To just see what Desmond Ritter can do, maybe absolutely nothing. It's kind of a nice touch. They brought him into Cincinnati near his hometown where he played college football to play a little bit last week. But yeah, this team is just absolutely hopeless. And again, we saw this coming, that the quarterback situation was going to be ugly. The offense was not going to be good. You trade Devontae Adams away, it's going to be worse. So I don't know what the Raiders are going to do here going forward. I don't know if Antonio Pierce can survive this. I mean, there was so much buzz about him getting through, and now Max Crosby and your defensive leaders are really chirping about this team and how disappointed they are to be on a team with this kind of effort. So it's done a 180 here in the Antonio Pierce era in just less than a year.
Yeah, and it has. And, I mean, we'll see the trade deadlines tomorrow. Maybe the Raiders move some players. Any opinion on the Monday night game tonight? Chiefs minus 9.5 against Tampa Bay, total 45.5. I mean, the Chiefs just basically don't score, but now Tampa Bay is having problems, too, with no receivers.
Yeah, I think the Chiefs are getting their passing game warmed up, so I think this is a good opportunity for Patrick Mahomes to flex a little bit more at home against the Buccaneers, who really have not stopped the pass all season long.
All right, Vinny, good to see you again. Thanks for coming on.
All right, thank you.
All right, Sound Off's coming up next. Don't go away.
Did they talk about the play they ran at the end of the game when it was the worst player screen I've ever seen in the history of basketball? No. See, here's what you got to do, Sherwood. I respect you. You're fantastic. But damn it, don't blame the officials. When you have a game like that close, there's about 100 or 1,000 different things you could have done differently that could have won you the game.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all people. What in the world is going on in Miami, Dom?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take.
I think this line is asking you once again to take the Orleans.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Boy, the Dallas Cowboys delving into some uncharted territory. I mean, this could end up being a really bad season for them. We'll see what the latest is with Dak Prescott. Needless to say, we have a lot to talk about with the Cowboys. We'll also get into the Bengals as well. It's time now for the SportsGrid Sound Off. Well, it was interesting yesterday. I don't know if some of you are aware of this, but Jerry Jones, who owns the Dallas Cowboys, also kind of serves as the de facto general manager. And so he does speak after every single Dallas Cowboys game to the media, which is like super rare. One of the comments that he made yesterday is that he is concerned with the injury to Dak Prescott. But there's a lot of other issues going on with the Dallas Cowboys, including one of their players not even making the trip because of disciplinary reasons. Let's get to the latest opinion on the Cowboys with our social media correspondent, Casey Hudson.
We opened up the NFL season with plenty of Dallas Cowboys drama and conversation. It was who's getting paid, what contracts are getting extended, so on and so forth. Well, the theater, that is the Dallas Cowboys, continues because today Dak Prescott goes down with an injury, but the cameras catch him on the sidelines saying how they effing suck. So the buy-in is just completely disappearing by the day, game by game for this team. Then Ezekiel Elliott doesn't dress out because apparently the buy-in hasn't been there for him either. He's been late. He's been missing team meetings. Why go back to Dallas? I understand the frustration of his limited role in production on this roster, but what's the identity? What was the plan for this Dallas Cowboys team? And if you're a Dallas Cowboys fan, I am so sorry because the frustration has to be epic. But this team is sitting at 55-1 odds to even make an appearance in Super Bowl. And I know no Dallas Cowboys fans are over here screaming Super Bowl opportunities, but I don't know if we thought it was going to be this daunting of a season. They've only won 2 of their last 5 games, and it just seems like the cards keep unfolding.
All right, thanks, Casey. And naturally, the other story behind this is obviously, will Dak Prescott play this week? I mean, will the injury cost him time? Is Cooper Rush the starter? Let's hear from Dak Prescott on his latest status and also the owner of the Cowboys, Jerry Jones.
Pulled something. I guess felt a pull or felt something I've never felt. Tough to walk on it at that point. Saw the medical team and asked, could I make it worse? At that point, they said I wouldn't be able to protect myself, and they made the call to hold me out. Yeah, very difficult. I guess that's, in my sense of just asking, can I make it worse if I can't? Like, know how much we needed this one. Yeah, I wanted to just get out there and compete, get out there and fight. Yeah, crazy.
We came in here thinking we could win that ball game. That's a team that we could beat. It's obvious mistakes, those kinds of things. Just any team in the NFL can do you in. This is not a good time. I really regret this for all of our Dallas Cowboy fans. I will tell you this, that I've been around. I've seen Michael Irvin tear up and cry when he couldn't lose anybody because he's just recovering from knee surgery. Yet his ass came back and led a team to 3 Super Bowls. I know you can be there if you're there. That room's full of guys that can get it done.
Cowboys, upon the trade deadline, could make some moves tomorrow. Maybe the Bengals will too. Joe Burrow, the quarterback of Cincinnati, still says there's a shot for them to succeed.
I'm going to have my standard of play, and I'm going to have my idea of the standard of what we should live up to as an offense and coaching staff and myself and everybody. And, when I feel like we live up to it, I'm going to let us know. And when I feel like we don't live up to it, I'm going to let us know too. Like I said, good and bad today. So not any time to sit and dwell on the good we had today. It's a short week. We got to learn from the bad and move on. I'm not just going to ignore the bad and dwell on the great that we did today. I don't think that's a recipe for improvement. I don't think that's a recipe for getting better. I'm gonna be hard on myself. I'm gonna be hard on us to execute the way that I feel like we need to execute. And I feel like we didn't put ourselves in great positions in times of that game to finish it off the right way. We ended up doing it. Defense came up big, but I think we could have done better.
Joe, you had 41 points. You did just fine. Adam Kaufman joins us next. We'll go over the latest in the NFL. Rams, Seahawks, and how good are the Bills? I'll tell you that.
did they talk about the play they ran at the end of the game when it was the worst flare screen I've ever seen in the history of basketball? No. See, here's what you got to do, Sherwood. I respect you. You're fantastic. But damn it, don't blame the officials. When you have a game like that close, there's about 100 or 1,000 different things you could have done differently that could have won you the game.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in the set than I do for this year. Brady, I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long, people. What in the world is going on in Miami, guys?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take, hot take. I think this line is asking you once again to take New Orleans.
Pro Football Today. Only on SportsGrid.
All right, let's bring in Adam Caplan, recapping some of the exciting games in the NFL and some not so exciting too. I mean, let's be honest. The early window yesterday was pretty exciting, down to the wire. Second games, 4 o'clock Eastern, not so much. Adam, great to have you back here on NewsWire. Thanks for coming on.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
All right, so let's get started with one of the more
definitely
exciting.
a day for the favorites yesterday. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, without a doubt. There's some covered too. The Dolphins, let's start there. The Dolphins did show up yesterday in Buffalo and very close to taking this thing to overtime, if not for a 61-yard field goal by Tyler Bass. But at this point, Adam, the Chiefs are the favorite to win the AFC. But don't look now here. The Bills right now, 4-1 to win the AFC. Win total 12.5, just 8-1 to win the Super Bowl. I know this was not their most impressive win of the season. Maybe that was last week against Seattle. But they're as good an offense as any team in the NFL. And I would also say, Adam, yesterday, Josh Allen had a, 25-yard touchdown run called back for no reason, too. He's been great.
He's been awesome, and I'm happy to have an MVP ticket on Josh Allen from before the season at plus 850, because obviously the odds right now are considerably worse. He's been very good. He's exceeded my expectations. This Bills team has as well. In recent years, we've seen them very up and down. One of the things we talked about on In-Game Live Pro Football Game Day last night, I had brought it up sort of in the same vein that you're talking about it now. What should we make of these Bills? Because everyone, I know the Chiefs play tonight, they're going for yet another win, only remaining unbeaten team, looking for their 14th straight W, all of that, 2-time defending champs. A lot of people just want to assume they are going to win 3 in a row like it's easy or something. So, all right, well, let's entertain the AFC. Let's at least consider who else could be a viable threat. There aren't many. It's Buffalo, it's Baltimore. That might be it as we sit here basically halfway through the year, because I'm not quite ready to go to, the Houstons of the world. And what really impressed me yesterday about Buffalo, and, I did kind of assume the Bills were going to win the game. I did have the Dolphins plus 3.5, so threaded a needle there, obviously, with that 3-point win, as you noted. But the thing about this game with Josh Allen and the offense in particular putting up 30-plus points was that he was doing it without Amari Cooper. They were absent a true number one receiver to start off their year, and so they were one of these teams in the AFC arms race to go out and get a wideout. And Cooper was very good last week, and I wondered, all right, well, Tua's back there. Tyreek is better with Tua, obviously. Waddle is up and down, but you know what he's capable of, that run game, all of it. The Dolphins, as bad as they have been historically over the last several years against the Bills, this is a spot where you could go into Buffalo and surprise them, maybe catch them off guard just a little bit. It almost happened, but the fact that the Bills and Allen were able to get over the hump, do so without Cooper, and, have the Shakirs of the world, among others, take advantage of an opportunity, sort of as they had to do, obviously, early in the season, but what was slotting them into a more advantageous role now with Cooper available, taking some of the attention off of them, I just thought was really good. And so, look, if I'm investing in a Super Bowl champion right now, I realize the Chiefs are the easy choice, quote unquote, but if I'm looking for some value, you're talking about Buffalo to win the AFC. I get it. If you're going to invest in that, you may as well just invest in them to win the whole thing and get that at 8-1. I think that is a really interesting bet with, again, still some value inside 10-1.
Yeah, and again, if they are somehow the underdog in the Super Bowl, which I don't know that will be possible, by the way, then you could hedge yourself or do something there along those lines.
Sure.
All right, so the Seahawks, I expected a bounce back after that poor performance against Buffalo the week before. They took the Rams right down to the wire, and if not for some mistakes, I think the Seahawks probably, Adam, would have won the game yesterday. In overtime, Matthew Stafford finds Demarcus Robinson to pick up the win and the cover. Very popular pick, I know, publicly yesterday, with the Rams going on the road and winning that one. But are they good enough to beat out the 49ers? Are they good enough to beat out the Cardinals? Because right now they're the third best odds to win that division. I know they played much better with a healthier team. I have to at least give them credit for that.
I was on the Rams yesterday, and believe me, I recognized that it was a gift of a win. Like you said, Geno Smith quite literally threw that game away. Multiple red zone interceptions, blown opportunity there down the wire when they had a chance to walk that thing off at the end of regulation. It was definitely a spot where the Rams, absent Cooper Kupp, because, again, he was kicked out early for throwing a punch. Not Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, pardon me. Matt Stafford had to really lean on Cooper Kupp and help them sort of seize the day, because it wasn't a great day for Kyron Williams either. They were able to do enough. And I just think this division in general is fascinating. I mean, you look at it and you outlined some of it. The Cardinals are the top spot at that's not going to hold. Kyler Murray and the Cardinals are not going to win this division, but they are 5-4. After that, you've got the Rams, the Niners, each 4-4. The Niners, God willing, man. I mean, if Christian McCaffrey ever does come back, this team absolutely should get better and should be in the playoffs. I can't believe we're even sitting in a time where the Niners are outside the playoffs looking in right now. And then, of course, the Seahawks, who are at 4-5 at this very moment. But that NFC in general, I was looking at the NFC standings. It's sort of separating itself already. And again, things can change. We're only halfway through the year. But, I mean, listen to this. Remember, the top 7 teams in the conference make the playoffs. So in order right now, Detroit, Washington, Atlanta. I'm skipping Arizona because obviously the record's not great, but whatever team wins the division is going to be slotted into that top 4 just by virtue of winning the division. And then your wild card teams each have 6 wins. Minnesota, Philadelphia, Green Bay. Now, it's entirely possible one of these teams or multiple could fall apart, devastating injuries, whatever else. Again, a lot of season left. But right now, 6-3 is that 7 seed, and then you've got the gap to all these 4-win teams. Tampa, Chicago, the Rams, the Niners, the Seahawks. Someone's going to have to make a run, or this NFC, not seeding-wise for the playoffs, but in terms of who's in, who's out, is going to be determined relatively early on. I don't really know what to make of this West, other than going in, I expected the Niners, obviously, to win the division before all the injuries. Right. I expected the Rams to be one of these wild card teams, and then the Cardinals and the Seahawks be on the outside looking in. I still kind of think we're going to head in that direction, but the fact that we're sitting where we are right now is borderline shocking.
Yeah, it is. Speaking of the Cardinals, I mean, they're in a good position right now. Maybe the Bears thought they'd be in the Cardinals' position, Adam. The Bears definitely, I would say an above-average talent team, but they're really not showing that. And with Dennis Allen showing the door today, I have a feeling Matt Eberflus is going to probably be feeling a lot of heat the rest of the season if they don't win.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I mean, Chicago is a team that I had going into the year as exceeding their win total, and the fact that they're sitting at 4-4 right now is not great. It's putting the pressure on some of that because they need to get to 9-10 wins. But I just think no shock. We're seeing up and down play out of Caleb Williams. Any rookie, especially a quarterback, is going to look like that. But I think a lot of people just assumed the offensive weapons around him were going to be better and more consistent. The defense has not been the issue. The defense has been excellent for Chicago. Look at that game they very nearly stole against the Commanders last week. And so, it wasn't good yesterday. You lose by 20 points at Arizona. But generally, the defense has been very, very good. And so I just think the offense, Caleb Williams needs some more help. The Keenan Allen injury off the top of the season didn't help, obviously, but I thought we'd get a little bit more out of DJ Moore, that running game situation, with DeAndre Swift and company. I thought that would be a little bit better. And so the Bears have been, compared to preseason expectations, a disappointment for sure. The Cardinals, this is just a team that Kyler's not the guy and they got to figure it out.
I think right now the Cardinals will be very fortunate to be where they are and take it right now. Adam, thanks again for coming on NewsWire. I really appreciate it.
Of course.
All right, we'll take a quick time out here on the show. Adam Caplan, our SportsGrid insider, tells us that there will be activity at the deadline tomorrow.
Did they talk about the play they ran at the end of the game when it was the worst player screen I've ever seen in the history of basketball? No. See, here's what you got to do, Sherwood. I respect you. You're fantastic. But damn it, don't blame the officials. When you have a game like that close, there's about 100 or 1,000 different things you could have done differently that could have won you the game.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all season, people. What in the world is going on in Miami, Dom?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take, hot take. I think this line is asking you once again to take New Orleans.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. NFL trade deadline is tomorrow, so we'll get to that and also the latest in the NFL. We've got a couple of coaches now out of work in the National Football League. Let's bring in Adam Caplan. And, Adam, let's start off with the news today. Dennis Allen shown the door by the New Orleans Saints. I really don't know what the Saints' expectations were, to be honest with you, at the beginning of the season. They looked very much like a 500 or sub-500 team going in. Dennis Allen, generally speaking, where he's been previously, currently, not great coordinator, hasn't had a ton of success as a head coach. So do we have to go higher here in the Saints hierarchy to really decide who to put blame on here for this?
No, I thought, Craig, you set it up very well. The belief around the league was that they'd be somewhere around 7, 8, or 9 wins. And after the first 2 weeks where they just, it was incredible. Clint Kubiak, the new offensive coordinator, 91 points. Their defense looked good. Everything looked good. Then Derek Carr has this oblique injury. The defense falls off, and that's the side that Dennis Allen comes from. He's really responsible for. They're running his scheme. The defense was never dominant like most people thought it would be. They're not even good at home anymore, where they were dominant for most years under Sean Payton, and they just kind of fell off. Mickey Loomis, their general manager, did go on record today in their statement talking about they had their share of injuries. There's no question about it, but you really can't blame injuries when it comes to their defense. Just not good enough. Dennis Allen, by the way, is a very good defensive coordinator, but as a head coach, it just didn't happen. He was very young when he took over as the Raiders head coach in 2014, where he got to know Derek Carr, and they got reunited, obviously, with the Saints. And look, the other thing is, Derek Carr overall has not played good football in many, many years. He's not been consistent. So if you take it, you talk about the hierarchy. If you take it, it's not just the head coach. I get that the head coach is going to be responsible, but there's the roster billing, cap issues, which they continually have. It's a challenge every year with them. And it's funny, after 2 weeks, people thought, did we all miss on this team? No, we didn't. We thought they'd be mediocre, and they're really worse than that.
Yeah, it just hasn't been a great month and a half for them, without a doubt. All right, so the trade deadline is coming tomorrow. Adam, generally speaking, we spend way too much time talking about the trade deadline because usually very little happens. I'm just being honest. We throw all these things out there. This is the one sport, generally speaking, that is quiet outside of that big McCaffrey trade a couple of years ago. So you hear that every team is buying and they're looking, and the Cowboys and the Dolphins, I'm hearing reports of those teams buying. I don't understand that at all. But generally speaking, who do you think that is really willing to make a step forward to try to make the playoffs?
All right, so in my reporting over the last couple weeks, and I'll add a couple more things to it. So I put out a couple weeks ago that the Steelers are in on Mike Williams. ESPN had a report, but before Mike Williams, they're in on Christian Kirk. Kirk breaks his collarbone. He's out for the season. I'm told the Steelers are still in on Mike Williams. We'll see what happens by tomorrow's deadline at 4 p.m. Eastern. The Steelers have been probably better than most people thought. I like that. It's funny. I remember in May, I'm like, if you like the Steelers, you better get on them now because that 7.5 win total for the futures numbers is going way up. It jumped up to 8.5, and I thought that was too low. They clearly are going to be way better than that. But the one thing they need is wide receiver. Van Jefferson's the guy that they brought in. He played for Arthur Smith, their offensive coordinator, when the two were in Atlanta. Hasn't really worked out. He's no longer starting. They're trying to figure it out. Opposite George Pickens and Roman Wilson, a guy I know who had a great training camp for 2 weeks. He got hurt with a hamstring injury, and he's had too many injuries. He's on injury reserve, so they have to do something with receiver. It doesn't have to be a great player. Just a veteran could come in and play right away. So they're in on it. Washington, I'm told, is looking for cornerback help. I'm told they've checked into, I will make this perfectly clear, they've checked into J.C. Horn. That's a big name. I'm told he's not available now. That doesn't mean that you can't keep calling, because I know from talking to GMs over the years and clubs, like when your total player's not available and the team's out of it, you might want to try a couple more times. But the Commanders are clearly looking for corners. They also need receiver help, to be honest with you. Now, that's a team, Craig, I know you like them. They've exceeded expectations. I am stunned at how good they are, but they got to play the Eagles in 2 weeks. They got to actually play them twice. And they also have to play the Steelers this week.
Yeah, I still like them. I'm telling you, Super Bowl. Call me crazy.
Ooh. What are their
still
odds,
see it.
by the way? What are the future numbers? Do we know?
It's all the way down. I don't know. I'll have to check the latest. It was 20-something to 1. I don't know that it's still there at this point. We'll see. Every week it goes down. Maybe it's under 20 to 1. Frank, check that for me while we can. Giants, Panthers, Browns. Yeah. I know that you're reporting that all three of those teams have players that could be on the move.
Yeah, and look, this is what happens, Craig. I know you cover Major League Baseball very closely. When teams know that they're out of it, what they do two things. A, they look to move players either not going to come back, they're older players or players they know that are going to be free agents and they can get something for. Like the Browns here with Zadarius Smith, okay? This is not a secret. He's been on the block for about a month or 6 weeks, probably more than basically about a month. Teams have called the Browns, and there was a report from Pro Football Talk that he's almost certain to go to the Lions. The Lions lost Aiden Hutchinson. That's a natural. The Lions are now the NFL's best team in the NFC. We know that. And then you've got the Chiefs, by the way. They're looking for receiver help. Well, you could talk to the Chiefs made the one trade for D-Hop. They're still very light at receiver. Darius Slayton's a guy that is got some time left on his contract, but it's a situation they're a really bad football team. The Giants did not expect to be this bad. You look at, honestly, you look at these other teams here. Look at the Patriots. KJ Osborne. KG Osborne was brought in as a free agent. He was a healthy and active. They have young receivers they want to look at. These things are easy to match up. When a guy's inactive who should be starting, you know that this guy is probably going to be moved. I mean, you look at Cam Robinson last week. He was a healthy and active for the Jaguars. He got moved to the Vikings who need a left tackle. That's the way it works.
So the Atlanta Falcons are a team that definitely feels like they're headed toward the playoffs, especially with the Buccaneers having the issues that they have. Do you feel like that's a team that could be active at some point?
Yeah, in fact, look, they made the trade with the Patriots for Matthew Judon. It hasn't quite worked out. I'm told they're still looking for pass rush help. They got to do something. You mentioned teams that are out of it. The Dolphins they're not technically out of the wild card race, but we know they're not going to get there. Kendall Fuller has got a very tradable contract. He's a good football player, more of a number 2 corner. Keep an eye on him tomorrow. These are the type of guys you said, Craig. It's not, you don't see a lot of big names moved, but there's a reason why GMs asked for the trade line to be moved 2 weeks back. Teams that are still in it, 3-4, 4 or 5 wins, they're still going to make calls and still try to get players that could help them get one of those wild card spots.
Yeah. By the way, real quick, Dallas, you buy what Jerry Jones said yesterday? They're going to add tomorrow?
I mean, what could they need a running back. Now, that's the one position that Jerry completely missed out on that. Remember, he's not only the owner, he's the GM. They absolutely have to do something at running back. And that's right.
All right, Adam, thanks again.
You got it. Thank you.
Did they talk about the play they ran at the end of the game when it was the worst player screen I've ever seen in the history of basketball? No. See, here's what you got to do, Sherwood. I respect you. You're fantastic. But damn it, don't blame the officials. When you have a game like that close, there's about 100 or 1,000 different things you could have done differently that could have won you the game.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in the set than I do for this year. I'm ready. I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long, people. What in the world is going on in Miami, Dom?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take.
I think this line is asking you once again to take the Orleans.
Pro Football Today. Only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. How easy was it to make money on betting against Dennis Allen? It's a fascinating subject that I want to talk about here on the show. I hate to do it, but it's true. Also, some stats that changed because of Tua Tagovailoa's final play of the game with the Dolphins, and also an honor for a Hall of Famer. It's time now for some last licks. All right, Vince Carter played in the NBA for more than 20 years. He's got a very funny meme out there. I got one more in me. I'm sure you've seen that. Can't even name all the teams that he played on, honestly. It was so many teams through the years. But he came up with the Toronto Raptors. And in honor of him going into the National Basketball Hall of Fame, the Raptors are honoring him in a way that's super cool, by the way. This is something completely different. In fact, Vince Carter's image of himself is going to be on their team plane this season. How cool is that? Vince Carter gets his own plane, sort of, kind of, you know. He could probably buy the plane if he wanted to. But yeah, there it is. So Vince Carter, for those of you who are watching the Raptors fly into a city near you, you're going to get to see Vince there on the side of the plane. I'll never forget Vince playing at the University of North Carolina and coming up as one of the top players in all of the NBA. He had a fantastic career. I don't think people appreciated and realized how good he was. The early part of his career with the Raptors was just him mostly like dunking, but he turned out to be a really good offensive and defensive player as well. So really well done by the Toronto Raptors there. All right, here it is, the next topic. Hate to do it, especially on a day that Dennis Allen got fired. But truth be told, before Dennis Allen got fired, I sent this information to my producer, Frank, to do on the show because I had a feeling he was going to get fired today. I'm just being honest. Folks, in the last 30 years of betting, for those of you who bet on sports, you're watching SportsGrid, you must be betting. Fading Dennis Allen was the way to go. I mean, look at this record against the spread for Dennis Allen. He was the easiest coach to fade in the last 30 years as a favorite. 9-20 was his record as a favorite. I mean, that's horrible. So basically, if you just bet Dennis Allen as a favorite with the Saints, you got rich pretty quick. I mean, that's not something that happens that you see very often there. But yeah, that's his record. That's a true story. Worst coach to bet on and best to fade. 9-20 against the spread record as a favorite for the Saints. All right, finally yesterday. Now, this affected me too, by the way, in fantasy football. I had Jalen Waddle, as we go to the Dolphins here, I had Jalen Waddle who caught a pass and ran backwards for like 25 yards, and I lost some points. Now, for those of you who bet the over on Tua Tagovailoa's passing yards, you also lost because of that last play of the game. Tua threw the ball to Waddle, and he ran backwards. Literally ran backwards, went over his passing prop for the day in terms of passing yards. It was an easy win, and it ended up being, unfortunately, a loss in the end. Now, for me, I think I'm going to lose my week anyway, regardless of what Waddle gets or not. But, like, I was looking at Waddle's stats, and I saw, like, 10, because he caught a touchdown pass. I don't know if he caught that at the end of the game. Actually, his touchdown was big. It tied the game. But then I lost all of his receiving yards. I think he ended up showing up with, like, 2 receiving yards, or -2 receiving yards. -4. -4, Frank says, receiving yards on that. Very strange day. Daniel Jones in the first half had a touchdown with no yards, too. All right, that'll do it for the show today. And, folks, hey, great programming coming up later. For those of you who are into college basketball, folks, first day of the season is today in college hoops. Games during the day, games on at night. We got you covered throughout the day here on SportsGrid, especially Pharrell loves his basketball, loves college hoops. He's got you covered today with some of the finals and some of the previews. Now, again, some big spreads tonight in college basketball, some circled games, as they say, because really good teams playing against really bad teams. But it is the opening night of college hoops. 3 o'clock Eastern, Pharrell Coast to Coast, followed by Game Time Decisions at 6. And then we've got a preview of the big game tonight between the Buccaneers and Chiefs on Pro Football Today, in-game live game day, and then Pro Football Today post-game immediately after Monday Night Football. So make sure you stay on the grid for that. Thanks again to Luke for directing the show today. Luke back in the house after his little time off. Thanks again to Frank, of course, for producing the show today. I will be back with you tomorrow for our next edition of NewsWire at 11 a.m. Eastern as we get you ready for all the NBA action. And we'll also, of course, have a preview of all of the games in college basketball as well. Don't forget to download the SportsGrid app. It's completely free. Right now, take out your phone, scan that QR code. The SportsGrid app available for iOS and Android. Information on our hosts and all of our shows. It's there. Have a great rest of your Monday, folks. Enjoy the first day of college basketball. See you tomorrow.